Hello guys, it's Dan and welcome back. So today, a little bit late, but better late than never. I'm going to give my hot takes on the budget because I've been bleating about the budget and all kinds of things that are coming into force. The budget's actually here now, so let's go through it. I'm going to be looking at an article on the BBC, which is a nice, simple, easy to digest thing, which is Budget 2024 Key Points at a Glance. I'm sure most of you are going to know all about these things, but I want to go through it just for my own peace of mind, and we can do it together. So let's dive in. There she is, Rachel Reeves, a Lego head herself. Apparently this is Labour's first budget since 2010. So they announced that they had a £22 billion hole in the finances and they needed to generate money to fill that. So where's that money coming from? You and me. Well, not me at the moment because I'm in Dubai. But what she has come up with, I'm sure that it wasn't just her, but she's announced tax rises, surprise, surprise, worth £40 billion to fund the NHS and public services. Well, let's see how that goes. I'll believe that when I see it. So let's go through, if you want to sort of follow along with me, I'll put the link in the description. So the first bit is personal taxes. So the rate of income tax and national insurance paid by employees and VAT is to remain unchanged. Okay. A decent start. So the income tax band thresholds are going to rise in line with inflation after 2028. So that's kind of preventing more people being dragged into the higher bands as wages rise. Now we start coming on to the things which are perhaps not that great. So the basic rate of capital gains on profits from selling shares is set to increase from 10 to 18%. And the higher rate is going from 20 to 24%, so not great. The rates on profits from selling additional property remains unchanged as well, so that's interesting. Maybe they're trying to encourage people to sell properties. Inheritance tax remaining frozen. Exemptions when inheriting farmland to be made less generous in 2026. Ooh, conspiracy theory. What is Bill Gates doing? He's buying a load of farmland, isn't he? Food shortages coming maybe? I don't know. Let's not get too conspiratorial. We don't want to be talking about, David Icke's lizard people, do we? Or maybe we do. Let me know, comment below if you want to hear about David Icke's lizard people. I'm well versed on all of this stuff, so we can talk about Area 51, Area S4, lizard people, aliens shooting people's hands off, whatever you want. We can go as deep down that fucking rabbit hole as you want. I'm kidding. Or am I? This is where the kind of rubber hits the road or meets the road. As I'm sure you will be aware, companies pay national insurance on people's salaries. So if you are an employee, your employer not only pays your salary, but they also pay a tax on top of that called employer's NI, which was 12.5%. That's rising to 15% on salaries above £5,000, which means, let's face it, we're all on more than that. That's up from 13.8% on salaries above 9,100. So there's no tax relief on small salaries anymore. Okay. So the employment allowance, which allows smaller companies to reduce their NI liability, is set to increase from 5,000 to 10,500. So that's not good for small businesses. That means that there's not going to be any more relief. So the main rate of corporation tax paid by businesses on profits of more than £250,000, that's going to stay at 25% until the next election. So minimum wage is going up from £11.44 to £12.21. State pension to go up by 4.1%, and there's a triple lock on that, which I don't actually understand what that means. So again, if you know what that means, comment below, please. An extra £500 million to repair potholes in the UK. So if you live in the UK, you already know that the roads are in a rapid state of decay. In Bristol, where I live, there's potholes everywhere. It started to happen over COVID, and then when we came out of that, it just kind of increased exponentially. Now, I don't know why that was. I think probably maybe because there wasn't a lot of traffic on the roads. But 500 million, is that enough? Probably not. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but I don't think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it is. So there's a new flat rate tax coming in of £2.20 per 10 millilitres of vaping liquid. Okay, so they're taxing that, no surprise. Tax on tobacco to increase by 2% above inflation. So that's, whatever inflation is plus 2%, and 10% above inflation for rolling tobacco. So, if you've been avoiding smoking your Marlboro Lights and you've been using rolling tobacco because it's like, 10 times cheaper, they're coming for you. So tax on non-draft alcoholic drinks is increasing. Oh, okay, but tax on draft drinks cut by 1.7%. That's weird. I've never known that before. The government to review thresholds on sugar tax on soft drinks and to consider extending it to milk-based beverages. What does that mean? Milk-based beverages. Government spending and public services. So day-to-day spending on NHS and education is going to rise by 4.7% in real terms this year, before smaller rises next year. I don't know what that means. The Home Office budget shrinking by 3.1% and then 3.3% next year due to assumed savings in the asylum system. So what does that mean? We're just not having an asylum system now. A £1.3 billion extra funding next year for local councils, which will also keep all cash from the right to buy schemes for sales from next month. So local councils are going to keep that money from the local right to buy schemes, So social housing providers are allowed to increase rents above inflation under a multi-year settlement. That's not going to be good. So you're going to have profiteering from these, social housing providers. It used to be that you couldn't increase it by more than 10% a year, something like that. Whereas now, if they want to increase it by 500%, they can legally. Discounts for social housing tenants that want to buy their property under the right to buy scheme is actually being reduced. So again, a Labour government nixing your chances of buying a property if you live in social housing, and stamp duty to go up on the purchase of second homes, going up from 3% to 5%. You could argue that's a good thing. If you're buying a second home, there's not enough houses to go around, so people buying 2 or more houses maybe should pay a little bit extra. The point at which buyers start paying stamp duty on a property when you buy it, that's to drop from £250,000 to £125,000 in April. So that's actually reversing the previous tax cut. The threshold at which first-time buyers pay the tax. So if you're a first-time buyer, you don't pay stamp duty. But if you bought a property over £425,000, you would pay it. That's now dropping back to £300,000, which, as you would know, if you live in the UK, you can't buy a shoebox for less than £300,000. So the Office for Budget Responsibility predicts that the UK economy is going to grow by 1.1% this year, 2% next year, and 1.8% in 2026. That's a sort of, a mature Western economy. It's probably about right, but they fudged the numbers a bit, but whatever. Let's not get into that now. The inflation prediction is 2.5% this year, 2.6% next year, and 2.3% in 2026. So we've already heard the numbers for growth, which are all below inflation, which means in real terms, the economy is sliding backwards. Do you understand that? If your economy is growing by 1%, but inflation is 2%, your economy has actually shrunk by 1%, if that makes sense, because you have more M2, more money supply in the system than you have growth in GDP. So in real terms, the nation's shrinking, and that's why it feels like there are problems in the UK, and you see a slow sort of decay. Budget policies, so what they're doing is going to increase the borrowing, holy moly, you might want to sit down for this, from 19.9 billion this year to an average of 32.3 billion pounds over the next 5 years. Yikes. And there's other things here which I don't really know anything about. There's 11.8 billion being allocated to compensate victims of the infected blood scandal. I don't know what that is. It doesn't sound good though, does it? and the government is to stop receiving surplus cash from pension schemes for mine workers and stuff like that. Okay, so we're kind of at the end of it. So that was at a glance. You can go to the website or you can click the link below if I remember to put it in. But interestingly, there's no mention of an exit tax there. So mea culpa, I was wrong. I know for a fact it's being talked about. Maybe it will be announced at another point, maybe after the budget, I don't know. But if you're watching this, and if you're thinking of leaving the UK, you've dodged a bullet. Now is the time to get out before that exit tax comes. As I've said a million times before, you can book a call with GenZone below. They'll get you out here to Dubai, or maybe there's somewhere else that's more beneficial for you. If you could do me a favor and subscribe and like, it does help. There's no, we don't monetize the channel here. It just helps YouTube know that it is at least somewhat valuable for people, and then it will push it out to more people. So if you could, I'd really appreciate that. Cool, all right, thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one.